Hello everyone, it's me, Clayton. I just finished watching Glass Onion, a Knives Out story starring Daniel Craig, Janelle Monáe, Edward Norton, Dave Bautista, Kate Hudson, and Kathryn Hahn. Now, when it comes to the first Knives Out, back in 2019, it was written and directed by Rian Johnson, who, after he happened to make a very polarizing Star Wars film with The Last Jedi, he happened to subvert expectations with the whodunit genre, but in a way that I feel was not only smart and well handled, but also happened to make a believable antagonist out of Chris Evans before he did so in other movies. Yes, Ransom was quite the villain he was, and here we happen to get a new villain who not only reminds me of a certain billionaire, but who happens to have quite a mystery at hands here that Benoit Blanc is all too eager to solve. But let's get to the story, shall we? Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, is seemingly invited as a joke to a private island in Greece by a man named Miles Braun, played by Edward Norton. He's invited several of his closest friends, the Disruptors, over to a party where he happens to hold this murder mystery game. But his real idea of doing this party is to introduce a new hydrogen-based fuel that he's planning on using to lift his name into the stratosphere, to make him as well known as the Mona Lisa. But when some shenanigans happen and when some unexpected people arrive on the island, it becomes very clear that things aren't going as planned for Miles, and sometimes not even for Benoit Blanc. But that's all I'll say about the story. What I really love about this movie is how utterly awful most of the people that Miles invites are. I mean, you have a men's rights activist streamer who's about as insensitive as Andrew Tate. You have a scientist who's looking to get ahead. You have a politician who's willing to lie about anything to get her poll numbers up. And you have a fashion designer who doesn't know when to stop tweeting even when it's utterly offensive. These are people practically who practically cling on to Miles just so they won't get canceled and so their reputations can remain somewhat intact. And given how many people suck up to rich jerk offs in order to get ahead, even nowadays, I think it's actually very much a worthwhile idea to go for. Especially considering Miles Braun is such a lovably hateable person as well. Not only because he reminds me a lot of a certain person who bought Twitter, but also because Edward Norton, unlike Ransom in the first movie, is able to be genuinely friendly, at least have a genuinely friendly facade at first. On top of that, he just comes across as the eccentric in the way that a lot of those billionaire types tend to be. And, of course, Benoit Blanc returns with his Kentucky Fried Foghorn Leghorn drawl like he did in the first movie, and Janelle Monáe happens to play an interesting double role where she happens to play basically two people that I didn't think she'd be able to play, but she does so in a way that I think was actually very effective. And on top of that, I just love the fact that the film's able to utilize its setting to its fullest, like a lot of great whodunits. The Glass Onion has a lot of glass-related architecture. It has statues made of glass. It has a floor and ceiling made of glass. Even a piano made of glass that someone believes belonged to Liberace. I can imagine the production design must have taken a while for this, which is why I'm also surprised that Netflix got a hold of it. But given how well it did in theaters and how it's going to do well on its service, I think they made quite a strong investment here. And much like the original Knives Out, I think the whodunit happens to make sense when it comes to getting all the clues together and finding out everyone's motivations as to why they actually did the certain thing. So it happens to subvert typical whodunit conventions while still being an effective whodunit, much like the first film. And honestly, I don't think I've seen that many other films this year that happen to be as smart or as inventive as this movie, where even if you don't agree with some of the politics of some of the characters, you can still appreciate everyone's performances, everyone's amazing production design, and the story that had me interested from beginning to end. So that's why I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. See you next time.